Hello, everybody, and welcome to this. I hope what I'm guarantee will be a fantastic conversation about creativity without limits, designing for the 0.1%. For any of you that don't know me, I'm Helen Brocklebank. I'm the CEO of Walpole, and Walpole is the organisation that looks after luxury brands in the UK. So what do we mean when we're talking about designing for the 0.1%? That's exactly what I'm going to be asking the panel. But it really is about when a customer for whom money is no object. And if money is no object, then it's got to be all about taste, it's got to be about discernment, it's got to be about having the most fantastic thing in the whole world. So with me here to talk about this and to talk about the triumphs and hopefully not the tragedies, but some of the tips involved in working with that kind of customer is a great, Selina McCabe from Winch, Famid Khalik from his eponymous Famid Khalik, and Karen Howes from Taylor Howes. Now, I was going to start with you, Karen. Do you want to just give us a little introduction to you and to what you want and to what you do and to what and then what designing for the 0.1% means for you?
So, hi everyone. My name is Karen Howes, and I am CEO of Taylor Howes. We've been going for nearly 30 years. I've been designing a little bit longer than that. Yes, I started from the cradle. It's fine. We work on a mix of projects, from high-end residential to we're just doing a hotel in Soho at the moment, luxury yachts, restaurants. And really, we love the fact that no two projects are the same. That is definitely a marker for the 0.01%. They don't want anything that anybody else has. It's a big differential. So we're always out looking for amazing suppliers. My friend Famid here on the sofa, we raid his studio constantly for the next best thing. And I've been doing it, as I say, for a long time, but I'm still passionate about what I do, and we have amazing clients. Yes, the 0.01% are demanding. They've got choices. They know what they're talking about, so you need to be really ahead of your game. But it does mean that the studio get to create really beautiful, beautiful bespoke interiors because we have the budgets to work with that.
Thank you. Fareem?
So, hello everyone. I started my company 13 years ago. And we, as Karen said, supply materials, all kinds of materials, of every color, type, hue, shape. Much of what we do is bespoke, like this one right here, which I'll come back to in a minute. I see our role as really being, for our clients, to wow them, to inspire them, because I believe that if I can make these ladies go wow, they can make their clients go wow in turn. Working with I think we actually have the largest variety of materials under one roof anywhere in the world. And as I say, much of what we do is bespoke. Working for the 0.1%, for me, is really about pushing the boundaries of creativity, being able to stretch our imagination, create something that's maybe never been created before. Interestingly enough, the sample I just pointed out to you, that was a project we did with Winch. I have to be careful what I say here now, not to break my NDA.
I will be taking notes, and it's being filmed.
It was a
We're always NDA, that's the problem.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
It was a swimming pool in a super yacht, and I believe it's the largest swimming pool on any private yacht.
Wow.
It was inspired by the RSC Club pool and Isfahan mosaics. And the sample that you saw that flashed up there, we created 12 arches, in semi-precious stones, so they were either that sample was in turquoise with rose quartz and carnelians and stones like that, and also lapis lazuli. It was 3,000 man-hours that went into creating those arches. It was the largest mosaic project in modern-day India, and it was 250,000 pieces cut literally by hand, and some of the pieces were smaller than the nail on my hand. And the reason why I bring that up is because I think sometimes people think that you're designing these flashy things. But actually, yes, we are in a way, but that gave an awful lot of work and kept dying art alive in India. So the flip side of that is the craftsmanship that we get to do and get to promote and create.
And actually, that client his site is going. So when you see how vibrant those colours are, for him, it was more than just the opportunity to design something that had never been done before. This was to try and elevate his daily life to something that really struck all of his senses, that maybe for us we would look at and go, wow, that really is vibrant and bold, and imagine that on a kind of 30-metre long room. But yes, it was all about enhancing his lifestyle.
Fab. Well, I mean, do you want, so tell us for you then what, a little bit about Winch, and
Yes.
then what it means to you to design for that most discerning of customers.
So yes, Winch Design. I am Selena McCabe. I am a partner at Winch Design. Andrew and Jane set the business up, the two of them, 35 years ago, from a little room somewhere, and have grown it to what it is today, which is a business synonymous with luxury, obviously, and whatever luxury means in the modern world. We specialise in yachts, planes, but now 50% of our business is actually architecture projects, and all over the world, Europe, America, UK. And yes, we're privileged. I would say, what does designing to 0.01% mean to us? It is a privilege. It's a privilege for them to select us for their jobs. I think you said they have options. When you have that amount of money, it gives you choices. So to be somebody that is selected to work alongside them on very intimate projects, you have to delve into their lifestyle, understand how they live, who they live with, their everyday life. It really is. It's an emotional journey.
Yeah.
So it's a real privilege to be part of it. And yes, it's an amazing opportunity to take the clients on a creative journey and be the meeting that they don't want to cancel, because they're very busy, they've got loads of stuff on, and you want to be the person that they say, I'm not missing that today.
Yeah,
Like,
we like to be their most important project.
yes, yeah.
And
Which is
actually, the more
tricky.
the more fun you make it, and the more interactive you make it, it's often quite a difference from their day-to-day world and what they're dealing with. So, you know, fun is really key in the part of this journey as a designer.
I mean, it's such an important process, isn't it? So how do you capture, Selena, that appointment I must not cancel because this is going to be
Yes.
exciting and rewarding and it's going to give me what we want?
Yeah.
How do you get inside somebody's head to the point where you understand that somebody wants an incredibly vivid, beautiful piece with leopard lazuli and and turquoise and precious materials for more reasons than it's just the fact that it's
Yes.
insanely precious and beautiful?
I think it really is about knowing your client and preparing well. It isn't a case of serendipity to accidentally fall upon your client's taste. You have to get under their skin in a way that's almost, they don't quite know you're doing it. So a lot of time, a lot of hard work, and avoiding design through Pinterest. You know, get out of the house, get out. I talk about this a lot. Visit museums, look back in time, test yourself to stretch away from what they've seen before, and trying to find something unique, but that answers their lifestyle choices. So, you know, a lot of the time we will start, before we even get into the design, it's about understanding how your client lives. You know, is this for a young, forward-looking couple that hasn't started a family yet, that entertains a lot? Is it for an older couple that perhaps have 3 generations behind them, but equally are still running multi-billion-pound businesses, and they need to have something that transcends both those worlds? So really understanding how they live, getting a good plan that perhaps twists their perception of what they even think they need. Do we need to integrate staff and how staff work seamlessly in and out of their world? So understanding the client is key, turning up prepared, always be the smartest person in the room when the client's there. You know, look like you know what you're doing.
So you've kind of got to be not just an incredible designer, but also a kind of psychologist and somebody that can
Yes.
develop an intimate relationship very, very quickly. It feels like that's quite a feat
Absolutely.
of work,
And I think
quickly as well.
Yeah, I think knowing when to be seen and when to disappear, because quite often you find yourselves, as you will probably say, in these weird scenarios where you're in a very intimate situation
Yeah.
and you have to disappear and you have to listen and you have to be the grey man, and then other times you need to entertain, guide, give the client confidence in the decisions and the money that they're spending.
It's
And
funny. I
listen,
was
listen,
at
Yes.
dinner last night, speaking at a dinner at the Albright, talking exactly about this. Is that you need to find some common ground instantly when you first meet your clients and they're coming into the studio, and whether that's through their family or a common connection or something like that, just to really start to understand them. I love asking a million questions. My team know I always say asking questions is a strength, not a weakness, so please ask questions later. And really it's kind of, as you said, quite as I said, is getting into their mindset. Often we've got 3 generations living under one roof, and they're big enough, the places that we're doing, that we can create different styles. In fact, what we're seeing is a big trend towards the younger generation actually wanting something incredibly traditional. Everybody's going back to heritage and roots, and how do we make these homes sustainable? Well, that's longevity of design and using materials that they're not going to end up on a skip in 2 years' time. We're working on the biggest residential build project in the UK at the moment. It's 65,000 square feet, and it's gearing that so that it doesn't feel like they're living in a palace or a hotel, and making it a home is that really challenge. And of course, working with Famid and his team on the amazing finishes and things that will go in there. I mean, most of what we show our clients, we can't just take them to a showroom and show them something, because it doesn't actually exist already. When you're doing true, innovative, bespoke design, we're lucky we've got a CGI amazing guy in our studio who just sits there and works alongside our designers so that we can show the client what's in our heads before they commission some really special pieces.
I think it's really interesting that you have a lot of clients that can't visualize it, and you have to do the CGIs. But then you also, we sometimes have a client that will come in to the showroom, and they want to see something. They're really interested in the materiality and how it's made, where it came from. We had a client in not so long ago who basically said to me, "I don't want to see anything I have seen in a hotel at all." And he was opening the drawers in our showroom, and he basically was a little kid on Christmas morning, pulling out these samples and saying, "I've never seen this and I've never seen that." And and it's a double-edged sword. You get the clients that that need the guiding, and then you have the clients who are very sure about what they want.
Yeah, we take clients straight down to our library, because actually it's the touching and the feeling of things. Obviously, we've not been able to do while we were in Zoom. That was the most frustrating thing. We could do the technical stuff, but actually the beautiful finishes and things you just can't get across unless you touch and feel it.
See them in real life.
That kind of collaboration with an individual, it sounds incredibly exciting. You could create it's a very iterative process, isn't it? How does it work, Karen, when the client is at one remove? When you're working with, you mentioned that extraordinary residential development that you're working on. I'm thinking also of Knightsbridge Gardens. How does it work when you're, in a way, kind of trying to imagine what the end user might want, but developing something for a developer?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, the private client is a very different journey to the developer project, because the developer project, we're imagining the end user. We've done a lot of research into the location and therefore who the client is. As you mentioned, Helen, we're working on Knightsbridge Gardens, which is that amazing site that any of you will see where the new Burberry store has gone in on the corner of Knightsbridge with Sloane Street. And we've been working on that now for, 3 years. It's got amazing retail on the ground floor, but there are 34 apartments above it. This is the first time in the UK, I'm not sure if it's in the world, it may well be, where none of them are for sale. They're all going to be for very high-end rentals. So we're furnishing 34 apartments. And that, again, is a very different journey to doing one show flat that then inspires others, and then you get commissions from different purchasers. So there are different buildings within that development, all have got different styles and tastes. So we're very much working to imagine that. a private client, you may not always meet the private client to begin with. You're often dealing with a private family office. That is really challenging. In fact, we actually insist that we have to be in front of the client because things get lost in translation. You can't, again, the thing you can't do on Zoom is read people's reactions. And, what you rightly said is, there's a lot of psychology in what we do, and you need to read people. You need to see how they're interacting with their partner. I was saying last night, I have sat between husband and wife and children negotiating this path about what is going to work in their home and who wants what and what matters to the other. And it's just putting that, I always say design is a bit like a jigsaw. You get your corners in place, and then you get your border right. You put your key pieces in, and then the technical bit is all the sea and the sky that goes on endlessly. The complexity of these projects is not to be underestimated.
Yes, and I suppose also it's kind of for you as a designer, kind of stretching people's imaginations, kind of just pushing it a little bit further, which kind of was a question that I had for you, Famid, is you have the most extraordinary raw, kind of materials. I mean, nothing. I go round Harrods and I look at what you've sourced there for some of those things. That red agate bar in the top of the Baccarat bar is just. If you've not been, you must have a look. It's just very, very, very beautiful and vivid and all those things. How do you go about think about that imaginative process with your clients, and then with who their clients are? How do you go about sourcing those beautiful things, the lapis lazuli, the designers that you can use, the craftsmen, and so on?
If I started my business today, I couldn't recreate my business again. I think when I started 13 years ago, the way I get asked this question a lot: how do you find the things? Well, then in the old days, it was walking up and down every aisle of an exhibition or traveling to different places, and you'd find these great things. And I didn't set out to create this business. This business organically grew into what it was. But the world's a different place now. It's much smaller, and every workshop wants to be a brand. So, nowadays, we have so many materials already. Nowadays, we're mostly driven by the needs of our clients and their clients. For example, we were working on a yacht project where the client wanted to have Lalique panels on the yacht backlit. Well, they couldn't because the weight was too much for the yacht, and also the price was ridiculous. So we found a way of hand carving acrylic so it looks like Lalique panels, doesn't have the same weight, and certainly not the same cost. So it's about finding solutions, I think. A lot of the times when you come to me, it's, we start off with an idea.
On speed dial.
Yeah.
I think you've really touched on something interesting there, because the world is a smaller place now, and I think we are seeing, or certainly with our clients, this desire to break away from this fast design, this scrolling. They are well-travelled, very educated people that have been to the best restaurants, the best hotels, the most amazing airports, all these places that they've been inspired by, whereas previously to be exposed to that much creativity was a longer process. So what we're seeing with our clients is this desire to maybe slow down design a little bit, to find something that's completely unique to them, as you touched on, for me, that actually is not just about this brand new, squeaky clean, cut out of a catalogue and plied on a wall. They want this collection of carefully curated pieces, meaningful purchases, that they're part of the journey. So it may be that we use their collection of artwork or sculptures that they've had for years or inherited, and we combine that with future antiques or items found in antique shops. This idea of having a Modigliani in the same room as an upcoming artist at 300 quid really is where we see our clients going. So it perhaps transcends money, because actually they have so much it almost doesn't exist, and it really does come down to this lifestyle and appreciation for taste and and doing something a little bit more personal.
I think we're living in a golden age of craft right now. You mentioned future antiques. I think some of the things we're creating now will be the antiques of the future.
Yeah.
You know, these people are patrons, and you know, we are reviving techniques that have died, and making techniques that, you know, creating new techniques as we go along. So I think it's a really great period to be working in.
It's very exciting.
So interesting. The idea of a golden age of craft feels really counterintuitive, doesn't it, in a very kind of technologically driven global
It's
world?
this
But that's a
reaction,
very
isn't it?
beautiful idea. Exactly what
And
can
the modern
last.
patron.
I
The
mean,
modern patron.
it is. It's going back to, you know, it is really going back into history, and when people went on their grand tour and they were influenced and they came back and they built their palaces and their estates and things. And, you know, I think everybody, you know, we've all realised how important our home is in the last 18 months. And, you know, our job as designers is to, whatever the budget, is to create something that is inspiring, but a safe, a kind of refuge, really.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we're seeing the trends change around the home. You know, what's coming up next. We're all back entertaining because we can. We can have our friends home. We don't have to meet them in restaurants sitting outside freezing to death. And all of those, you know, all of those influences, you know, our clients are, you know, very much and homely is a word that actually, even at the top 0.01%, keeps coming up when we're speaking to their clients. And their children want something homely and comforting. But yes, that commissioning, going back to that commissioning, you know, pre-pandemic, I would say a lot of clients were a bit nervous about commissioning things because they couldn't see the end product, and was it a risk, and were they going to get what they're going to? But I think, you know, as you say, the slowing down of the journey, the not needing everything to be finished 100% the minute you walk them round. They're prepared to wait for something that's specially designed to them, that are the antiques for their family further down the line. And that's amazing that we get to work with unbelievable craftsmen that we have in the UK and overseas. It's a real privilege.
Yeah. Do you think? I mean, do you have a sense of responsibility as well to those? I mean, I think about the craftsman you mentioned. It was kind of the last of his, you know, of his kind. You know, it was kind of a dying craft. When you've got the trend that more people want craftsmanship, a golden age of craftsmanship, are you seeking out people who may well need reviving or may well be kind of an endangered species to bring to people? What's that responsibility you've got to those craftsmen as to find them the patrons?
I think, I'm trying to think of an example for you. We work with a mill in Laos that has historically always woven silk. And the son wanted to do something different and also ensure the longevity of it. And he came up with this ingenious idea of weaving leather with silk on a hand loom. Now, you know, when you think about it, you say it, you go, how can you weave leather with silk?
Work? Yeah.
But the leather is cut into tiny strips, and it's woven in the weft, and the silk is in the warp. And so you've got two noble fibers here, a traditional technique, and he's created something completely new that is absolutely stunning. And actually, we had a yacht client, not one of yours, I'm afraid, but we had a yacht client who actually lined all her walls of her main cabins in that because she loved the story of it.
Something new from something
It's something new,
old.
and I think that's what drives all of us sitting here. It's why you guys are at Decorex. It's why we're speaking. Is that yearning and that searching for something just a little bit different.
Yes.
You know, it's what our clients expect of us. We're the kind of editor curators for this vast amount of finishes and beautiful pieces that are out there, and yeah, very much a kind of curating role is what our job is, and it's almost a competition in our studio actually as to who can find something that nobody else has seen, and then when you put it in front of the client and they're like, wow, I never saw that. That is what makes you get out of bed in the morning.
It's interesting. I see my job being is to make your life a little bit harder, in the sense that my job is
too much choice.
Well, no, I try and find. For me, it's about technique. It's not really about the sample that's there. It's about
You're
finding
failing,
that
by the way,
technique.
because you make our life a lot easier.
Yeah,
can
you
I
do,
say?
actually.
But I think if I find an incredible technique, it's your job as the designer
To do
to
something
take
with
that
it.
technique and create something completely unique for your client. And therefore, the permutations are endless. You can go on and on and on.
Yeah.
But it's that constantly finding or reinventing or thinking
Yeah.
laterally on a material or a surface.
To kind of astonishing and enchanting your customer is where it's at, isn't it? I mean, that's back to that. You don't just have to be a psychologist or, you know, or a presenter of incredible crafts. You've also got to be a storyteller. So
I was going to say, are we becoming wizards? Is that
Yeah,
what it
I
is?
think you are.
My team might say a witch, but no, a wizard.
yeah, the magic
A white witch, by the
The
way.
magic wand is kind of the expectation, isn't it? But
I tend to agree, and to sort of circle back to your suggestion that we have this responsibility, I really take that passionately and seriously, and I think as a studio, it's a thread that runs true with every designer. We have this platform where we have an opportunity to show clients or steer clients in certain directions. So, when we're doing a property in Cape Town or a property in the Côte d'Azur or the Seychelles, we absolutely look first at local artists, local designers. Why wouldn't we use people who are brought up and born and raised and creating within that area, within the project? So I think we absolutely have a responsibility. I think our clients, we owe it to our clients also to bring a relevant twist to all our projects, whether that's sourcing materials that feel right to the project. We did a property in Cape Town that all the architecture of it was built using materials that were local to site.
yeah.
For logistical reasons, if not just for that, because we wanted it to feel a sense of place. And it was the most amazing project. From the road, it was very unassuming. So it was 1 story from road level, but from the ocean, it was 6 stories high. So we had this battle with the elements, if you like, in an area that's, -10 in the winter and +40 in the summer months, that all of this we had to take on board for the client. So using materials that meant this property felt right for where it was, right the way down to the items that we sourced, artwork locally. We used furniture suppliers that we had manufactured there. And because of that, the project really you walked in and you felt, I'm in
You
Cape
felt
Town.
really
I'm
at home,
I'm
in
at
its
home.
local, kind of those. There's a perfect confluence of localization, of sustainability, of
Yes.
responsibility, of all those
Absolutely,
things.
and we did a lot of sustainable design within it, and again tried to educate ourselves, because it is an emerging market and it's fraught with questions that we have to continue to ask ourselves and ask our suppliers to say, is this really sustainable? But it was a real experience, but probably one of our best examples of how to take on board in its entirety a really personal, unique brief that's very relevant for that project, that part of the world, and that particular client.
I mean, that really comes, I think, down to this idea. Is this a trend, or is that the kind of line of travel for the future? I mean, maybe we'll talk about trends first. Karen, do you want to? Sustainability and responsibility being, absolutely in the eye of the storm when we come to trends at the moment. You mentioned a need for kind of family, of comfort, of heritage, of tradition, things that make us feel safe and kind of cozy. What are you seeing when it comes to?
So actually it's interesting. We're working on our trends report that we issue every year, so it's quite timely. And I think as well, as designers, we mentioned this before. Clients come to the likes of us because they don't want a cookie cutter approach. And I can't tell you how disheartening it feels sometimes to look at what you see out there with Pinterest and Instagram, everybody copying everybody else. And when I lecture at the colleges, it's like, please, as you said earlier, get out there, be inspired, come to shows like this. But in terms of trends, I mean, definitely the home has become everything. People aren't traveling as much at the moment, so they're very much wanting spaces for families to get together and be together and have friends. So we're seeing the kind of revival of nightclubs and bars, which I love designing and spending time in. We're doing in one of our amazing projects, we've got bowling alleys and every simulator you can imagine, and it's a really fun thing to do, and really get into that mindset. We're seeing more space actually allocated into the spas and the wellness aspect of keeping that within the home. is really key. And you know, we handed over a project. We're lucky in our studio. We have about 40% of our projects at any one time are repeat clients. So we handed over a project, and it was a very humbling experience, and it just reminds you how privileged we are actually to create these special spaces. So this was a second project for the family, and they had a real tragedy during lockdown with their 15-year-old daughter who sadly died. And so we handed this over, but what we took comfort from was that we created a really safe space for the family to kind of heal and be together. And I think that, as designers, is really respecting the clients. I'll never forget once, it's always stuck with me throughout my career, listening to the amazing Mary Fox Linton. And she said, you know, it's a real privilege to be a designer, but never forget who pays the bills. The clients are always right. And I've carried that through on
very good
my
lesson.
journey for sure.
And just picking up on that, I think one of the things that we're seeing again post-COVID is this sense of safety and an inner sanctum. And certainly dressing rooms are no longer becoming just dressing rooms. And we're working on projects where it's a seating area, or it's
a shop.
Or it's a shop, or it's an area for the kids to play, or it's what were we talking about the other day? There's a desk for the...
One of our clients, you're saying this revival of the dressing room and how important it is the starting point of their day, and how it can kind of multi-function in many ways.
And I think it's a little bit like that, you know, the olden French court palace, where you would go through a series of rooms to get to the main bedroom chamber, and that was where your security and safety was. And there's definitely a lot of that now.
It's really interesting. And what kind of trends are you seeing? What's coming out post-pandemic, or just kind of been accelerated perhaps by the pandemic?
So it's interesting because we've spoken a lot about how our clients tend to sort of rise above trends slightly, and actively in some ways avoid anything that other people are doing. But if I was to say, what are our clients looking for that, regardless of style, is synonymous throughout all projects? I would definitely say it is a curated approach to their interiors. So this mixing of heritage and contemporary, this breaking away from perhaps very, very formal living, and yes, this lateral living almost. So spaces that, although they live very formal lives, even the most relaxed of our clients live a very formal life, but they want that to be slightly more discreet than perhaps 20 years ago, when service was very obvious, and now it's much more seamless. Clients are wanting a slightly more relaxed approach to how we dress and layer their projects, and it certainly isn't contrived, and meaningful purchases.
I think it's that fun and family is foremost, actually.
Yes.
And that kind of relaxed thing really fits with a wider lifestyle context, doesn't it? I think we've all seen, I've seen we've seen kind of fashion and other parts of luxury, that real kind of much more relaxed dressing, kind of cashmere fabrics, things that have, of course, are sustainable fabrics, but are easy to wear and cozy and that kind of stuff.
It's a bit more conscious purchasing. I think even like you're saying, in fashion and in interiors, people are a bit more.
It's not
Not
throwaway
throwaway.
fashion.
Yes.
Just throwaway interiors, as it's just not throwaway fashion. And what we're seeing is the kind of reverse, really. We're seeing some of the high street influencing the couture brands in fashion. It's getting more street and more edgy and fun.
All this desire to
formality
like,
is
go
gone.
to wandering through a flea market and finding something. Like you were saying,
discovery.
Discovery, this one-off, unique, this kind of.
So because I wanted to ask a question about how the wider luxury world influences how people's choices are coming. I know that you did an amazing. I mean, you had a client that wanted her Vuitton trunk to turn into a powder room. How did that all work and come about?
Clients are obviously, it depends on the client. I think the older the client, tend to be inspired by different things, palaces, stately homes. Younger clients, probably more so luxury brands. We had a client who had a Giambattista Valli dress, couture dress, beautiful dress, and she loved it so much that she didn't just want to wear it, she wanted to be able to see it all the time. So we created curtains, and this was silk and ostrich feathers, and we created curtains to match the dress.
Amazing.
And then, you have a client recently that came in that loved the staircase at the Chanel shop on Bond Street, which is all made up of faceted glass.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
That wanted us to try and find a way of recreating that, and it's curved, just to make my life easier. So yeah, there's definitely an influence from...
You can't help it.
Yeah.
Like you say, we are such an image-led industry now that clients are so exposed to so much stuff. We did a music studio in Antwerp, and the client was really inspired by couture fashion, but equally he wanted this more spiritual approach. So for him, we used the same company that manufactures the couture gowns to do the most amazing embroideried starlight scene on this ceiling that sits above his mixing desk, so to speak, because it's all about, it had to function, it had to pass all the tests to be sound absorbent, but equally he was so inspired by the fact that Chanel and I can't think of any couture companies now, but
Dior.
you can imagine,
Yeah.
Dior, exactly, use these artisans to create this most exquisite artwork. So
But it's a really
absolutely.
symbiotic relationship, though, I think, fashion and interiors. I mean, when I did my first embroidery collection 6 years ago, that was the whole premise, was to take couture techniques and reimagine them for use in interiors. And the irony was that Tom Ford saw one of those embroideries, and we ended up putting it on a dress for him. So it kind of just all goes round and
It
round.
does.
Yeah.
I often say that we set the trends before the catwalk. Why not?
Yes, exactly.
I'm not happy being
exactly.
second.
They copy us.
Yeah,
That
they
makes
copy
lots
us.
of sense. And actually then, because that's so I've got two final questions, then we can have some questions from the audience. So it's that kind of trickle-down effect. I mean, there is lots of it's lots of back and forth. Like you've got street style influencing haute couture and kind of vice versa. But what do you think because you're at the haute couture end, I mean, you mentioned that, but you're kind of like way beyond even the trends. What do you think we'll see the ordinary punter in the street like myself coming, looking
Us
for
civilians.
looking for us civilians? What are we all going to be looking for in interiors that you're seeing now in that very haute couture type of client?
I'm seeing a lot of, well, here you go, we're surrounded by it, colour, pattern and texture, which regardless of your budget, you can bring in. It doesn't have to be a beautiful hand-beaded cushion. There's some amazing cushions and amazing wallpapers that can instantly create a lift. And I think people actually are coming out of the pandemic with a lot more wanting to be surrounded by colour. We've never been afraid of it in our studio, and I think colour makes me happy. So I think that's what we're seeing a lot more of, actually, is people being a bit braver in their homes in terms of pattern and colour and texture. So
For me, what are you seeing?
I think for us, because we work on everything from super yachts to cruise ships and from houses to hotels. What I try and do is if we create something that's really amazing at the higher end, I always try and find a way of making it more accessible at the other end. So, for example, we developed a wood veneer that looks like straw marquetry. It's a fraction of the price. And we've, if I mentioned, we've got semi-precious stones where we photograph them and then digitally print them onto glass. So you can still have the same look. It's a fraction of the price. So I love the idea of making things more accessible to people. So it's not just a preserve of the super rich.
Absolutely. What would I say? I would say decluttering of meaningless objects and revival of heritage pieces and special, unique, personal
things. The meaning,
items.
they've kind of from the material
meaningless
to the
to meaningful.
meaningful. Yeah. Well, actually, I'm going to save my last question because I think we might try and get some questions from everybody out there. Has anybody got a question? Oh, there you go, right at the front.
Hi, good morning. So I'm an interior designer and I just graduated, and obviously your talk was very intriguing with the fact that you said you would want to see more revival of heritage. So where do you see there would be a balance between the revival and then the trends coming in? Especially when we talk about events like Decorex, the new trends coming in, and where do you see these trends would be sustainable? What do you think would the future be?
Good question. I mean, what we're seeing a lot of is people wanting more layering in the architectural elements of the interior. So, amazing, beautiful paneling coming back, columns, and that element of it. But that doesn't mean to say that you've got to stick with that one genre right the way through the house. So you can mix that up with some contemporary furniture. You can have, not every collector piece has to be, crazy budgets. So I think that eclectic is not quite the right word. The newly crafted, kind of that fresher, younger energy vibe coming through, but it can sit in a very traditional kind of environment.
Yeah, I would agree. Actually, I would say, you've just got to look out at the designers that everybody's, on the tips of everybody's tongue at the moment. I mean, we've interviewed lately, and everybody says the word Kaylee Wersler to me in their interview. So try and think of something else, or somebody else if you're going to interview. But there's a reason for that, because she is experimenting and playing around with all the things that we just spoke about. So this clear, defined architectural palette that then she layers with. So it might be that she layers with pattern and form. It might be that she does pattern, form, and texture. And then she might mix up heritage pieces, vintage lighting, with found sculptural pieces. So I think you can be a minimalist, as you were saying, and just have one piece added here and here, or you can nosedive into maximalism and throw it all in. So it's, as you were saying, how brave your clients want to be, and what suits them as a person. Not everybody wants to have everything all in one space. But yeah, the world's your oyster, I think.
Congratulations for graduating. If you're looking for a job, come and talk to me.
There you go. Quick, give me a
Yeah,
business card.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have anything on that question, or shall we go to another
I think
question?
the girls answered it really well.
Oh, I think the microphone's going to come down.
Sorry, otherwise everybody won't hear you.
Hello, I'm interior designer myself, and I have very practical question about client. My client now is my daughter.
Oh,
That
And,
sounds
quite.
that's a challenge.
Yes, it's challenge, and plus I found it's very difficult. Have a client as daughter. So my daughter is 30 years old, young lady, with Russian heritage, but who grown up and educated here. So she's sort of like a mixture, yeah? So this is her first property, which she recently bought in Clapham Common, Old Town. So, and I'm confused because I don't know how start actually.
Can you know your client too well?
Well, I think
they
actually
this could be one of those scenarios.
I think
So I just
I'm actually doing my
describe,
daughter's house at the moment as well. Actually,
my daughter is lawyer, qualified here, working for American company, very busy, and completely opposite, not like me. I'm artistic person, so I don't know how to start actually.
well, I would ask her first of all to do a Pinterest page, and we often do that with clients.
Okay.
What she likes and what she doesn't like. I think Olivia's here. I did a house for actually one of my friend's daughters, and I've known her since she was born, and she is an amazing influencer now, and she lives south of the river. And I think, Olivia, is that project on the website? No, not yet. It'll be on soon. I think it's appearing in Glamour magazine next week, actually. And in fact, she wanted some elements of heritage and pieces that had come from her family and from her country, and but with a few edgier pieces. But you know, whether it's your daughter or the king of Timbuktu, it's communication. You have to sit and speak to people. You have to draw out those. You have to make her do a bit of homework. Otherwise, you're going to endlessly waste your time. And then, you know, we only need 2-3 images from a client to completely get their look and taste. And then our job then is to give them a real array and spread of things, and then help them hone down. I mean, I will often sit client side with my team presenting, because we say that I'm the first client in the studio, so the team have to present to me first, because I very much get into the headspace of the client and know what they want. But also, they don't always have, it doesn't matter how much money you've got, you know, they don't always have the confidence to make those choices, because it can be quite bewildering. Particularly if it's one of their first projects, which is your daughter's. So I very much hold their hand and you know, will say, ooh, if that was me, I'd have that in my home, or that's amazing, you really should go for that. And it's just holding their hand and giving them the confidence. But lucky daughter.
We have, I think are we out of time? We've got time for one tiny one. We're done now. Thank you. That was such a good question.
Lock
It's
the
all
doors.
about.
We're going to keep. We're
Lock
going
the
to
doors. We're
stay.
just going to stay. How can everybody find you afterwards? If they've got any questions, you'll be out there and also on your website.
Absolutely.
So, Selina, Fareem, Karen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think we took the conversation to somewhere without limits as well. That was great. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for coming.
Thanks.
Thank you for supporting.